Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Ivory Coast is a step closer to settling on the content of a new constitution that President Alssane Ouattara says is meant to rewrite the nation's history. The cabinet approves the draft document that scraps a controversial nationality clause. Next step, a referendum. Also, 7 years ago, an opposition rally in Guinea Conakry ended in a massacre. More than 150 people were slaughtered by soldiers. The trial has yet to begin and the victims' families are frustrated. Also, we head back to Johannesburg for the CITES International Conservation Conference, where they've chosen to ban all trade of the world's most trafficked mammal, the pangolin. All 8 species of it has moved into the organisation's highest category of protection. But first, Ivory Coast's government is a step closer to settling on the content of a new constitution that the country's leader says is meant to rewrite its history. On Wednesday, President Alssane Ouattara's cabinet approved the draft document that scraps a controversial nationality clause that became a symbol of exclusion, sparking a coup in 1999 and a civil war in 2002 to 2003. Ouattara himself was at first barred from running for office because he couldn't prove both his parents were born Ivorian. Now, the change will be welcomed by the country's huge immigrant population. Other amendments are also in store. Arnaud Froger tells us more.
With only a month to go before the constitutional referendum, the timing is very tight for Alssane Ouattara and his government. The draft constitution was given to the president last weekend, discussed by the Council of Ministers on Wednesday morning. Next comes next week's debate in the National Assembly, but the details of what's in it hasn't been released yet. President Ouattara is keen for the future Third Republic of Ivory Coast to introduce a vice president and a senate. So those would be major changes, and there's not a lot of time to explain them to Ivorian voters. A big problem, particularly as half of the population is illiterate.
Up until now, everything that has happened suggests that on the 30th of October, the people will know what is in the new constitution, and people will vote with that knowledge. There are no concerns on that front.
Many NGOs from civil society disagree as a call for a postponement of the referendum. They think that Ivorians need time to fully understand what is at stake here. The main opposition party already started a no campaign, claiming that priority should be given to build schools and hospitals instead of a new constitution.
Arnaud Froger there for us. Now, a Somali journalist who was shot dead in Mogadishu on Tuesday has been buried. An unidentified gunman opened fire on Abdiaziz Mohammed Ali as he was visiting his parents in the north of the city. He'd worked with the popular Shabelle radio. It's called for an international investigation into his death. No one's yet claimed responsibility for the killing. Somalia is, though, one of the most dangerous countries in the world for journalists. 45 were killed between 2007 and 2015. The former Congolese vice president, Jean-Pierre Bemba, has formally appealed against his war crimes conviction. He's arguing that his trial at the International Criminal Court was flawed. The former militia leader was sentenced in June after having been found guilty of failing to stop his troops raping and murdering civilians in Central African Republic in 2003 and 2002. South African police have continued to have run-ins with students protesting over the cost of education in the country. Clashes broke out at Rhodes University in Grahamstown on Wednesday, and several demonstrators were reportedly arrested. Demonstrations erupted last week after the government told universities they could hike next year's fees by up to 8%. Well, 7 years ago, an opposition rally in Guinea Conakry ended in a massacre. Soldiers killed more than 150 people. The trial has yet to begin, and the victims' families are fed up. We take a closer look.
On Wednesday, when the victims of the massacre tried to enter Conakry Stadium, they were not let in. It was here exactly 7 years ago that, according to the UN, 156 people were killed and 109 women were raped by soldiers. The crowd had gathered in the stadium to reject the presidential candidacy of Moussa Dadis Camara. He had taken power in a coup 9 months beforehand. Today, Dadis lives in Burkina Faso and says uncontrolled elements within the army committed the atrocities. A trial has yet to begin, and the victims and their families are exasperated.
All this shows the state doesn't have the political will to judge these crimes. And look at this. Today we come here to the stadium where the crimes took place, and they didn't even let us do an interview inside.
Just being here brings back terrible memories for the victims.
When I come to this stadium, I can't handle it. What we went through was terrible. I even feel ashamed.
The investigation began 6 years ago and several junta leaders have been charged. But for the victims, the procedure is far too slow. This week, Guinea's Justice Minister tried to reassure them. He said the trial would begin next year.
Well, delegates at the CITES International Conservation Conference in Johannesburg have voted to ban all trade of the world's most trafficked mammal, the pangolin. All 8 species of the animal will be moved into the organisation's highest category of protection. Now, they're a delicacy and used as ingredients in traditional medicine across Africa and in countries like China and Vietnam. Demand has fueled an increase in poaching. More than 1 million pangolin have been illegally hunted in the wild over the last decade. And environmentalists say that a crackdown is overdue.
What that means now is that they will have full global protection from international commercial trade. This species is being pummeled by unsustainable trade for their scales and for their meat. And now that these protections have been done for them, it's going to be a clear line that any trade in pangolins is illegal going forward.
Whilst global animal welfare and conservation is top of the agenda in South Africa, in Kenya, efforts are underway to look after their own unique habitat by tapping into their own history and culture.
These Masai warriors in the savannah of southern Kenya are transforming their traditions. No longer lion predators, they're becoming lion protectors, armed with a GPS instead of a spear.
It's quite hard to track a lion, especially using their prints. They're clever and cunning. They know how to escape from you without you seeing them, but they also know how to attack cattle when the herder is right there. But for me, as a warrior, I knew it was hard to track lions. You have to use all your senses and be very brave to find them.
Killing lions is an integral part of Masai culture. It's how a young warrior becomes a man. But now the focus is on studying lions' behaviour, finding lost herders and children, and recovering lost animals. According to the group, they returned around $1 million worth of lost livestock to their owners last year.
The whole program's not just based on lions. Obviously, we're lion guardians, so that's pretty primary to what we do. But it's half of everything we do, if not more, is about the community. First and foremost, it's always about the community, helping the community. They come first.
The number of guardians in southern Kenya has shot up from 5 to 40, and the lion population has tripled. As the programme spreads to Tanzania, Rwanda and Zimbabwe, an increasing number of hunters are earning a living by protecting their former prey, making conservation, rather than killing, a new source of local pride.
Well, Botswana is gearing up to mark 50 years of independence this week, but is feeling the growing pains. Its economy was long boosted by diamond revenue, but the gems are not forever, and the country is now trying to diversify and look into other ways to fill its coffers.
Saritse Khama was Botswana's first president when the country gained independence from Britain 50 years ago. And the man who will preside the celebrations this week will be the current president, his son, Ian Khama. The same party, the BDP, has been in power since independence.
It's a response by the people to our policies and programs, which have always been people-driven. And our zero tolerance for corruption, for example, and being the least corrupt country on this continent is part of that.
Botswana built its economic success on diamonds and then used the revenue cautiously. It created a sovereign wealth fund. But demand for diamonds has dwindled. At the same time, safari tourism has boomed. Botswana boasts more than 150,000 elephants, a third of Africa's entire population of the animals. Despite this, unemployment is high nowadays at around 20%.
I'm worried by the fact that there's no employment. People seek jobs, and so many graduates are street walking with no jobs.
I just hope things will get better for us, especially as youth, because I think we're the ones struggling the most in terms of, finding jobs and making a living for ourselves.
Botswana has been described as one of Africa's success stories, but the government's critics say it's becoming more authoritarian, and the country still has to deal with a huge public health issue. The UN estimates that about 25% of people aged between 15 and 49 are HIV positive in Botswana.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for watching us, and please do so again if you can. Take care.